Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Julie, and in today's sewing vlog, I'm going to make a multicolored overall slash salopé. Here you can already see the final end result on my DIY makeshift photo shoot that I did with a giant hat.
Wait a minute, I know that hat. I was taken aboard that hat. They did experiments on me. I can't have children.
Here are the jeans I'm going to use for this project. I got them from a friend, and I'm going to start by making the pants. Now, the best thing about the method that I'm about to use is that you don't have to create a pattern for the pants because we're going to use the pattern that the jeans already has. I first wanted to do this with 2 pairs of jeans, but these jeans were a little bit too small for me to do that, so I'm going to add in a third to make it a little bit more comfortable and roomy. I started by cutting out one of the front legs of the darkest jeans, and then I cut a little strap from around 10 centimeters or 4 inches, and I'm going to put this in the middle because this will give me the more room that I talked about, because I really want to be comfortable in this, and add an elastic. Then I cut the back leg of the lightest color of jeans, and these 3 will form my first pants leg. Now I have 6 pants pieces. I'm first going to draw and cut the pocket a bit deeper and wider because I like practical, useful pockets in my clothing. I really wish that fashion companies would start liking this too. Then I pinned the pieces together. When you pin the pocket piece, you have to take in account that like an actual pocket will be added to this, so you have to pin it on the same line as the pants, if that makes sense. So the top all forms a line because we're going to add a pocket behind the opening. Then I sewn this with a simple straight stitch. Sewing with jeans can often break a lot of needles because the layers are quite thick. I always used to use a special jean needle, but these often still broke. But I found a solution. I sewn this whole project with a needle made for sewing leather, and the needle didn't break at all. And now it's time to make the pockets. Pockets for jeans are actually just triangles with an opening for the pocket opening at one side. I laid the jeans with the wrong sides towards me on my fabric, and then I copied the opening we just made. Then I flipped it over and I copied the other piece so we could start creating the rectangle. Then I drew a straight line from 25 centimeters. If you live at the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, that's 10 inches. And then I finished the pocket off with a curve, and I cut it out, and I'm going to copy it, of course, because I need 2 pockets. And once you fold it in half, this is what it looks like. Now we have the base of the pockets finished, and I'm going to add a little piece to this on top in the same color as the jeans to make it look a little bit more aesthetic and like a real jeans pocket. So I copied this little part on the jeans, and then I made it a little bit bigger so you would have a little extra. I cut this out, and then of course I also copied it on the light jeans. Because I'm making 2 pockets at once. The next step is to add those pieces to the pocket pieces. I first zigzag stitched around all of the edges to prevent everything from unraveling in my washing machine. And now I'm going to sew the jeans pieces to the fabric pieces. I first pinned them in place, and then I attached them, and for the curvy hem I rolled this under before I sewn it so it would have a nicer finish. This isn't really a mandatory step because you won't really be able to see this hem, but I still did it. In store-bought jeans there's also a little coin pocket attached to this, but I don't own an iPod Nano, so I don't see the use of attaching this. But if you still do and you want to feel nostalgic, add a coin pocket.
You ever wonder what this pocket's for?
Now I'm going to attach the pocket piece to the jeans. So I pinned it to the opening, and I'm going to sew this with a simple straight stitch. Then I flipped it over. I first ironed it, and then I top stitched this for a nicer finish. Then I folded the pocket piece in half and I attached this to the side, also just with a straight stitch. And now all what's left to do is to actually close the pockets. So I close this and then you have pockets in your jeans. Then I cut the edges of the jeans leg so it would form a straight line, and I'm going to close this. So I folded it double and I'm going to pin and sew this close, but I will stop sewing at the crotch. So you only sew the long straight line and you stop sewing here so you can still close this into a pants. Now to add the pants together, you simply lay them together and you align the edges, you pin this and you sew this. Like I have one tutorial out there where I make this so complicated, but honestly it's so easy. You just align them, you pin them together, make sure that the crotch aligns and that it's all aesthetically good looking. You pin them and then you sew them with a simple straight stitch and ta-da-da-da-da, you have yourself a pants. I wanted belt loops on this, so I enjoyed myself with the tedious job of getting them off the pants. I selected 3 darker ones and 2 lighter ones, and then I attached these to the pants in places that I liked them. For the waistband, I thought that it would be the most aesthetically pleasing if it aligned with the colors of the pants. I'm really using the word aesthetic too much in this video, I'm sorry. So I measured how long the pieces should be to align, and then it took me like 10 to 15 minutes to cut pieces that were of a good size, both width and length, and that would of course fit the belt loops. And once this was done, I started pinning this together, still making sure that they had the right size to align them. And then I sewed them, so I had my multicolored waistband. Now it's time to attach the waistband to the pants. If you have chosen to make it multicolor like me, you have to be really careful that it aligns, so it is, here I go again, aesthetically pleasing. If you also chose to add belt loops, make sure that they align and that they're sewn with it nicely. And when you're sewing through 2 layers and belt loops, be sure to go slowly and to use a leather or jeans needle. Now I'm going to add an elastic at the back of my waistband, as this doesn't have a zipper. I calculated some space in the beginning of this video when I made the pants to add in the elastic. I cut this elastic out of an old underwear because these elastics are kind of free and the quality is amazing. So I pinned this to the top edge of the waistband and then I sewn this twice with a zigzag stitch. Once I had the elastic in, I folded the waistband double and I sewn this with a straight stitch, and this way you finish up the pants. So now we have a pants with a waistband and we need a top for this salopé or overall, however you want to call it. To make the top of the salopé, I put the pants on and then I measured the length that I wanted the salopé to have. And for the width of the top, I measured the length between my bra straps and I'm going to use this for the width. So I wrote down these measurements and now I'm going to make the pattern. So I placed the fabric under the pants, and for the bottom width, I'm going to use the size of the dark blue part of the pants. Then I measured 35 centimeters, that's the length I wanted plus a little bit extra, and I marked this point. Now I'm going to use my width measurement, the measurement that I measured between my bra straps. I'm going to divide this by half and draw a line on this point. We're going to create not really a triangle, but something that looks like it. So in order to create this shape, I used a yardstick to connect the line with the one for the bottom. And once this was connected, I cut it out and now you have half of your top. So I flip this over, make sure you copy this in mirror sides. Then I copy this on the darker piece and here you have my 2 pieces for the top. Then I added some fusible interfacing to both of the pieces and I sewn them together into one top piece. Now for a nice finish, I ironed this flat and I'm going to finish off the edges. So I folded over the edges with my ironer and then I sewn this with a straight stitch. I didn't film myself sewing, but I think it's quite obvious what I did. Then once the first side was sewn, I folded over the other longer sides in the same way. And I also sewn this until I had one aesthetically looking piece for the top. Now I want this top piece to have a pocket, and for the colors I decided to switch them again. So making the pocket is actually just making a smaller version of the top. I added the measurements that I used on the screen. You can change it up if you want the pocket to be bigger or smaller. So then I cut them in the same way, leave a little bit extra for the seam allowance, of course. Then I also added fusible inner facing and I finished up the edges. I finished up the edges in the exact same way as I did with the top. So I folded them over with an ironer and then I sewn all 4 of the edges neatly. Then I pinned the pocket in place and I sewn all of the edges except the top edge, of course, so you can actually use this as a pocket. Also, you're sewing to a lot of layers of jeans again, so go slowly. Then I pinned the top to the pants. Now, if you are using belt loops, make sure that they are nicely in place. Otherwise, you will have to get out your seam ripper and redo this. And I know that you don't want that. So pay attention to that. Also pay attention that everything lines up. And now you can sew this very slowly because you're sewing to a lot of layers of jeans. So sew it very slowly with a straight stitch and again use the jean or leather needle. Now to make the back part of this DIY jeans overall, I'm going to create this in the same way as I did the front. I will just adjust the measurements a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I will put the measurements that I used for the front and the back on screen so it's clear to you what you have to do. Just deduct a little bit of everything. Then I continued in the exact same way. I put fusible inner facing on the back, then I connected the pieces and I finished up the sides. And then I also attached it to the overall, of course. And now we are almost there. All we need are the straps. So for the straps, I pinned the back and the front of the salope to my t-shirt. And then I measured how long the straps needed to be and add a lot of extra to this. I added 10 centimeters, that's around 4 to 5 inches extra, just to be sure. Then I cut the last pant legs that I had in this measurement. And I'm going to cut this in half to make 2 straps. Then I also added the fusible inner facing. That's like kind of a theme of the last part of this video, adding the inner facing. And now I'm going to fold this double with the inner facing towards me and sew as close as possible to the edge. And now all you need to do to turn this into a worthy strap is to turn it around. This is also kind of a tedious job. It actually took me more than 20 minutes to turn both of them around. But once I was done, I had my straps. So now it's time to connect them to the salope to finish off this project. When you pin them to the back, be sure to pin them in an angle so the straps form a triangle when they lay flat. Then I sewn this twice on both sides to be sure that it would be stuck. Now to finish this up, I added 2 buttons to the front. I used the ones that are clichély used on a salopette, but you can also just sew a button to it. That's also beautiful and that's also a bit cheaper if you are really on a budget. So the buttons are on and now I'm going to attach the 2 other iron thingies that you need to finish up this salope. This is really easy, so I'm not going to insult your intelligence and make an in-depth tutorial of it. Just know that I added it and that actually finishes up this project. And here you have the final end result again. I already worn this a few times and I got a lot of compliments, what made me happy. And I wanted to do a photo shoot in front of a pink wall, but I don't live in LA. So I just hang this pink sheet that I want to make a dress of one day on my garden house, and then I did the shoot. I really like the result and the photos. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's a long video, so thank you for watching to the end or skipping to the end. Okay, bye!
Well, excuse me, my fashion impaired friends. I am here to tell you that hats are back.